Assalamu alaikum, ISCJ community. We are live today. Ashour, and inshallah we'll have Dr. Ahmed Ashour, can you guys hear me?
Yes, you're lagging a little bit, Sheikh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure what's going
on. I think once you went live, I think it started lagging a little
bit. Alhamdulillah. Technology, you gotta love it.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. ISCJ community, we're gonna get started shortly. But as usual, before we start the official program, just a couple of reminders that I wanted to give the community is number one is tomorrow, 8:30, we'll continue our series with Brother Sanal Malik on the stories of the Sahaba. And then Tuesday, we have a special seminar, webinar, interactive live on estate planning / wills and also wealth management, right? So we have Brother Abad from Syria Wiz, who's an expert in the space of estate planning and wills. From an Islamic standpoint, will be joining us. And then Sharia compliant wealth management with Brother Bilal Kaleem from Hupo Advisors. So inshallah, they'll be joining us on Tuesday. And then Wednesday at 8:30 p.m., inshallah, we will have the ISCJ leadership and including Dr. Ahmed Ashour, inshallah. I did let them know that we're expecting them on Wednesday. And inshallah, the goal of Wednesday's session is to get the community ready for Ramadan. We'll go over the programming and the plans that we have virtually online that we're planning, inshallah, for starting for Ramadan. We'll start fasting on Friday, inshallah. And the first night of Quran recitation will be Thursday night. Not Taraweeh, but Quran recitation, right? We want to make sure everybody understands that, inshallah. And then, of course, I wouldn't be doing my job as the moderator here if I didn't remind people, do your part. Hashtag one community. We need 100% participation. Again, don't wait for Ramadan. Tomorrow is not promised for any of us. Whatever you can do, whatever's in your capacity. I know everybody's stretched in different ways, but whatever you can do, because remember, ISCJ still has to pay their bills, right? We want to continue to pay our staff, and handle their benefits, and we have property tax and insurance and utilities and so on and so forth. Those bills have not stopped. They have to be paid. So inshallah, with that, I'm not going to spend too much more time with that. There's a amana and a trust that we all have as a community for you guys to do what they can, inshallah. With that being said, I do want to hand off this program to Dr. Ahmed as we're working towards a unique Ramadan. Every Ramadan is unique, alhamdulillah, and special and blessed in a different way. But Dr. Ahmed, our beloved Sheikh Ashour from ISCJ Quran Academy, and we do have another guest that will be joining in any moment, inshallah. But Dr. Ahmed, the virtual room, the virtual floor, and the community is in your capable hands.
جزاكم الله خير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على النبي محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. تابعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. It's an honor to kind of conduct this program, a unique, I guess, towards a unique Ramadan. And yes, Ramadan is a unique time for all of us. Every single year, we try to make it a different Ramadan. That being said, inshallah, I'll be acting as the host with me. There's going to be Sheikh Ahmed Ashour, and inshallah, Sheikh Mohammad Elshinawy will be joining us shortly. Sheikh Ahmed Ashour does not need an introduction, mashallah. He's very known in our community. He is the director of the Quran Academy at the ISCJ. Mashallah, he's well versed actually in multiple other skills that most people don't know yet, including actually a lot of linguistic and Arabic skills and teaching Arabic and foreign languages. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Elshinawy. Sheikh Elshinawy just joined us.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi everybody.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
يا هلا حياكم ربي يا شيخنا.
حياكم الله وبياكم.
And Sheikh Mohammad Elshinawy just joined us right now. Also, alhamdulillah, he's not a person who's not known. So just a quick background about Sheikh Mohammad Elshinawy. So he is a graduate actually from Brooklyn College in English literature. He has studied at Medina University, but also finished his degree from the Islamic Studies at Mashka University. He's also an instructor there, mashallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him in his time and his efforts. He also does a lot of translations for AMJA, the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, and also International Publishing House. He is also the Director of Religious Affairs at ICPA in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Is that correct, Sheikh?
Something like that, yeah.
طيب, alhamdulillah, something like that. IECPA. I'm just trying to get that correct. طيب, so today, inshallah, we are obviously just a few days away from Ramadan. And if anybody, I don't know, it's subhanAllah, it's always a blessing and an excitement to when Ramadan comes. We always treat them as a special guest. And as a special guest, when they come, we always prepare for them in the best way possible. But at least for me personally, subhanAllah, I feel like one of the wisdoms that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made Ramadan mandatory for every single year, because I feel like this is the kind of like, the station that we need to refuel our spirituality. SubhanAllah, many of us by the end of from one Ramadan to the next, by the end when it comes closer to next Ramadan, we're almost kind of dragging our feet because we're kind of a bit low on our spirituality. So alhamdulillah, this Ramadan comes in and rejuvenates us back again. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ would talk about so many of the virtues of Ramadan. The least of it is whomever passed Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaban, in belief and looking for the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then sins will be forgiven. To each one of us, obviously, the Ramadan is treated uniquely. So that being said, I'm actually going to start with Sheikh Elshinawy today. I'm going to start with a personal question for him, and then inshallah we can dive into the meat of it. And then also we will ask that kind of same question to Sheikh Ahmed Ashour. And I don't think they might know this, but so the question for you, Sheikh Elshinawy, is for you personally as an individual, what does Ramadan mean to you?
Bismillah, wa sallallahu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Do you want like the formal, appropriate Sheikh answer, or do you want the honest answer?
Yeah, I want the honest, personal answer. We want to know Sheikh Mohammad Elshinawy.
Oh no. Okay, so I'm going to be extra honest in hopes that the amount of video conferencing happening in the Muslim community is so much right now. This will just get lost in the mix and it won't go viral or anything.
I think we're gonna bomb tag this, inshallah. So
to be very honest, this Ramadan means so much to me, inshallah ta'ala. And what I mean by that is, I definitely look forward to Ramadan, and I definitely have certain benchmarks that I ensure not to dip below, like being at Isha every night before the first takbirah, and fasting, of course, the most important action of the month, and praying my tarawih every night, alhamdulillah. But Ramadan has just some great potential that no other month has, that I don't always get to enjoy, to be honest. The past few years in particular, I've been looking forward to Hajj, because it was the only time when I can leave my phone in the United States. I literally turn my phone off and put it under my car seat. I won't tell you guys where I parked the car, or I give it to somebody, because it's the only time I have to be alone. I mean, Ramadan, I guess it could be a poor time management, calculation on my behalf, but I shoulder too many things in the past few Ramadans, and I'm never able to balance between that and the priceless opportunity of being alone with the Quran in the month of Ramadan. And that's what Ramadan is all about. It's about just shutting down all of the messages of the creation, and restoring the centrality, the rightful centrality of the Creator in your life, and the Creator's words in your everything, in your worldview, in your psycho-spiritual states, and all of that. And for a number of reasons, not all of them am I at liberty to speak about, but some of them are. One of them is called COVID-19 that the world is going through. I'm really looking forward to finding in Ramadan what I know exists, And I just want to share that as a message with everybody else, that people don't know. A lot of people really don't know what they could find while alone. Like, I'm not telling you to be isolationist. Our deen is not telling us to be isolationist, but there is a certain healthy distance from the creation that is necessary to allow you to connect with the creator. And people are afraid to be alone, as if they're going to be lonely. And I just want to tell people, you know, as I keep repeating this, that one of our psychologists and therapists at Yaqeen Institute, Sister Sarah Sultan, she says we really need to shatter that conflation, that false, you know, connection between being alone and being lonely. And it should be easy for us if you just stop and think for a second, because everyone out there nowadays on social media, before or after Corona, we connect with so many people. Our social networks are 1,000 miles wide, but we're still lonely, right? Because our social sphere, our social relationships are 1,000 miles wide, yes, but they're only about an inch deep. So we're so lonely. We don't have any meaningful connections. And so this is allowing us now, this lockdown is allowing us to connect deeper with the closer, more important circle. Family, yes, more important than family, though not at the expense of family, but more important than family is reconnecting with yourself, finding yourself, putting your mask on first, as they say in the airplane, so you can save everybody else. And more important than connecting with yourself, and this is a part and parcel of connecting with yourself, is connecting with your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you being with people doesn't stop you from being lonely. We've seen that in our generation. And so you being alone doesn't necessitate that you be lonely. And I have been sharing with people this statement that I always remember for Abdullah al-Mubarak, rahimahullah, when they ask him, why do you sit so much at home? Don't you get lonely? And he would say to them, how can I get lonely when I'm with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He was a dedicated hadith scholar that was rehearsing and, you know, sifting through and memorizing and reflecting on a hadith and reports from the first generations day and night. That in and of itself will breathe into you new life that you didn't realize was possible on planet Earth. So how about connecting with Allah himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala, with his words that he extended from the heavens? So that's what I'm really looking forward to, because that's what Ramadan is all about. Ramadan is about reciting the Quran and feeding food to people. Those are the two things you go and do in Ramadan. As for fasting, you're not really doing anything. It's what you're not doing, right, in fasting. But as for what you're going to invest in your Ramadan, of course, aside from abstaining from the right things to protect yourself, your fast, but you're going to go after the Quran, engage with it like never before, and like hibernate with the Quran, if you will, and feeding food to people is certainly of the primary acts of devotion to Allah through serving his creation that Ramadan is centered around as well. And there are many proofs for that beyond maybe the scope of this quick answer.
Actually, I'm gonna take that like, you know, last story you mentioned of connecting back with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abdullah ibn Mubarak, when, like, you know, you talk about he's staying with the hadith of Prophet because he's a scholar, he's like, how can I be lonely? And then you mentioned, well, if we're like, you know, engaging with the Quran, how can we be lonely? Which means we all know that, like, you know, Ramadan does have a special connection with the Quran, and it's centralized around it. So actually, I'm going to ask Sheikh Ahmed Ashour, can you please tell us a little bit more about the connection between Ramadan and the Quran, and maybe perhaps some of the beautiful things associated with it, and how it can really benefit us to reconnect with Allah Ta'ala and increase our spirituality?
بسم الله الحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. If you look at the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preferred some creation upon the others, elevate their stars. That's the sunnah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he selected some azmina, sometimes to be more rewarded, to get more rewarded if you do ta'at in it. And some places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has selected them, like Mecca. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it a sacred city. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he honored the children of Bani Adam, children of Adam, alayhi salam. From the human being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selected some of from the human being to be anbiya, and from them he selected some to be messengers. And read that in Surah Al-Baqarah, in first ayah in the third juz, تلك الرسل فضلنا بعضهم على بعض. طيب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he chose to send the last message to the earth, he prepared for that. He chose the best book to be the last message. And he chose the best angel to come down to the earth with the book. And he chose, subhanahu wa ta'ala, the best messenger ever, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to be the last messenger. Right. And he chose that we said best book, best messenger, and best angel. Like Jibreel is the best angel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned his name before the Malaika and after the Malaika in some surahs, in Surah Al-Qadr, which we're going to throw. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ خَيْرٌ مِّنْ أَلْفِ شَهْرٍ. Allah said, تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالْرُوحُ فِيهَا. The Malaika come down in that night to the earth, وَالْرُوحُ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned Jibreel specifically as telling us how the status of Jibreel to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how close Jibreel alayhi salam to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So from that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made our ummah the best ummah, because we have the best messenger, the best book came through the best angel. And Ibn Tahir ibn Ashur في التحرير والتنوير, he said, and that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selected Ramadan to be the best month in the year, and selected the Laylatul Qadr to be the best night. Laylatul Qadr is better than more 1,000 months. That's because the Quran. So the Quran is connecting to Shahr Ramadan because it's revealed in the month of Ramadan to Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz. And the first ayat, as Tahir ibn Ashur said, came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Ghar Hira in the month of Ramadan. With the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah gave him the guide to choose some nights in the month of Ramadan to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Ghar Hira. And Jibreel, first ayat came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the earth was in Shahr Ramadan. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran about Shahr Ramadan, the major thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the ayah, Shahr Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran. The Quran revealed in that month. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selected Shahr Ramadan. He honored Shahr Ramadan because of the Quran. I think I covered your question now.
So I'm going to go back to the whole thing about, obviously there's going to be a unique Ramadan. We hear different perspective points of view. So alhamdulillah, some of the people will say this inshallah is going to be a great Ramadan, inshallah. We're going to be very focused. There's not a lot of distractions. But at the same time, there's a lot of pessimistic voices out there that's telling us to be realistic. Masajid are closed. There's no salat tarawih. We can't hear the recitation of the Quran. So what are you talking about? Why is this going to be the most special Ramadan? How is this going to be a unique Ramadan? Well, obviously in either way you look at it, it's going to be unique, either unique in a positive way or unique in a negative way. But nonetheless, I think they're being more pessimistic, while some of the other voices, they're being very optimistic. One of the things while this was going on, subhanAllah, is I couldn't help but remember something that Imam Al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he had mentioned regarding when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might close certain doors. So he would say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't close a door upon a slave of his with his wisdom, except that he would open two other doors with his mercy. And this is a very optimistic, subhanAllah, view, because in the end, we really don't know what is hidden for us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. And perhaps that you might hate something and it's good for you. So that being said, Sheikh Muhammad, what is your take on this? And how can we really make this, which side is kind of more realistic, I guess? But I really want to give it more of an optimistic. How can we really make this a more actual optimistic, unique Ramadan? as much as we can, in a way that perhaps might boost and elevate our spirituality, because then also comes in mind, obviously, things are being done different than we're used to, and so the question, I guess, maybe perhaps is also, is there only just one way that exists that can help us along that path of spirituality to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or is there in fact multiple other doors? And if there are, what can we do? I know it's a lot of questions.
Can you be honest with me on how brief or extensive you want this answer?
Wallahi, Sheikh, it's, the floor is yours.
No, because okay, I'll keep it under 5 minutes, inshallah.
It's okay. We can take 15 minutes. I can extend this a bit more. It's okay.
No, because you may have a list of questions. We may want to engage the audience so that we speak about what they want, not what we want.
We got this covered. So
okay.
So just for the audience, if you guys have any questions, any comments, please place them. I am following them, inshallah. If you have any questions for Sheikh Mohammed or Sheikh Ahmed, please mention them right now, and we will be taking them. But until then, go ahead.
Okay, Bismillah. So first of all, we do need to be realistic, and it is an art that you will not be able to make headway in balancing between your optimism and your realism without the tawfiq of Allah Azza wa Jal, without Allah Azza wa Jal granting you from His divine grace that which is not earnable, right? He just steps in and helps you strike that fine balance. But let us say you were overly ambitious, okay? And after a week or two of Ramadan, you realize that you were aiming too high and you became extremely frustrated. That frustration by itself is understandable, but it is a treasure on its own that might outdo what you thought were your greatest acts of devotion that you couldn't keep up with. Like if you had a certain number of pages or a certain number of rak'at or some certain number of whatever it may be, verses memorized, and you couldn't get them, there may be something in your frustration that when channeled properly can outweigh all of it, all of your original plans. And what I mean by that is, Ibn Ata al-Sakandari rahimahullah, he has a beautiful statement where he says, al-faqat busutul mawahib. Al-faqat are these times of extreme need when you feel like I'm helpless, I'm powerless, I'm a loser, or I'm a failure. Or these moments, he says, they are the busut. The busut ma tabsutuhu, like the table spread, basically the banquet table they used to have on the floor. The skin you put where you place all the meals on it, the hide. And so the buffet table is what is the counterpart in our times. That is your times of need are the buffet table for what? Not for food, for divine gifts, al-mawahib, the hibas from Allah. Meaning he even said this, actually. I'll read to you further another one of his hikam ibn Ata. He says, وَرُبَّمَا وَجَدْتَ مِنَ الْمَزِيدِ فِي الْفَاقَاتِ مَا لَمْ تَجِدْهُ فِي الصَّوْمِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. It even sounds real nice. Rhythmically, if you can tell, even if you don't know the Arabic. He says, and you may find even in your times of desperation, your times of frustration, more than you've ever found in fasting and in praying. Why? Because those are habits. You may think, oh, it's easy. You may lose its taste. Whatever. There's so many different reasons. But when you feel like you have nothing to bank on, when you feel like your back is against the wall, you may dig deep and realize you have nothing but Allah, and so you align with Him in a way that you've never aligned with Him before. That's why in Surah Al-Kahf, for example, Allah Azza wa Jal said, "Hunalika," at that point, al-walayatu lillahi al-haq, is when they resorted to Allah, the true ultimate reality, the safest corner, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. Then I want to say, after that, Dr. Hatim al-Hajj, my sheikh and sheikh of Sheikh Ahmed Mutawalli and many others, he says that we must never forget that Allah will never deprive us of an opportunity and deprive us of the reward of that opportunity at the same time. That's not the Allah that we worship. That's not the Allah that we love, more than life itself. If Allah is the one to take away your capacity, Allah will not take away your reward, so long as you're devoted to Him. But at the same time, when Allah has given you a different capacity now, different things to do, different acts of worship, and you don't capitalize on them, then you weren't really devoted. You were devoted to that one act of worship, which made you comfortable. You weren't devoted to Allah using that act of worship. And that's what this like shift, this pivot that we have to do in Ramadan will really tell us. Are we really devoted to Allah? Because if you're on Allah's path, there's many lanes. If Allah blocks one lane, but He left another one open, if you really want Him, you'll keep it moving. You just get on the other lane and go. And so that's what we want to keep in mind. What doors has Allah opened up for me? And you may realize, if you start considering it that way, that Allah perhaps has opened up for you a way to better your Ramadan in ways you haven't realized. I'll tell you something. Many of us fall into dhulm in Ramadan in many different ways. Dhulm, we commit crimes against ourselves, we commit crimes against others. We lose our temper in our fasting. You're not going to see as many people to frustrate you. Maybe you're stuck with people behind closed doors. You may start appreciating them more when you realize what you're putting them through. So many things. But here's another one. We overeat throughout the year, but then we overeat in Ramadan, right? This Ramadan, when there aren't these huge iftars in the masajid, usually a place where people I just binge, because you know when you miss a prayer, you make up the prayer and then some to compensate. Some people, because they miss meals, they double up on iftar. Then they realize that the plate, I can't fit all that in my stomach, and it winds up in the garbage. Very weird things we do. But even the amount that you filled your stomach with before you threw the rest in the garbage, that is a huge impediment for you to being able to access the meanings of the Quran. You being able to access the life of your heart. They asked Imam Ahmad rahimahullah once, أَيَرِقُّ الْقَلْبُ مَعَ الشِّبْعِ قَالَ لَا أَرَى. They asked him, can a heart ever become tender on a full stomach? He said, I don't see how that's possible. In fact, like, this is just Ramadan culture, like huge banquets and visitations and masajid and stuff. And, you know, believe it or not, you think that's how Ramadan is supposed to be. Ramadan and not Ramadan is not supposed to be like that. In fact, Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, the very first bid'ah to arise in Islam, the very first deviation of the community, meaning after the time of the Prophet ﷺ, people started drifting. The very first bid'ah to arrive in Islam, she said, was overeating. So this is not something that's normal. This is something we actually have to fix, and this might be an opportunity to do it. Here's another one. This assumption, and I'll make this my last one, the assumption that you need to know so much Quran to connect with the Quran. No, you just need to be so dedicated to the Quran to know the Quran. The Quran, as some of the Salaf said, is like a date that the more you chew it, the more it comes out, like sweetness comes out. It just doesn't end. Some of the Salaf, like Ibn Uyayna rahimahullah, who's known to be extra focused on the Quran, Sufyan ibn Uyayna rahimahullah, he said one of the reasons we are deprived from benefiting Allah's book is because of us rushing to get to the end of the surah, right? You got diverted from quality over quantity. You know, the messages of the Quran, as some scholars said, is like a good friend. You won't, or a friend that you have to stay with them for a while before they start disclosing their secrets to you. And that's perhaps of the wisdoms why we're taught to memorize the Quran, so that we repeat more until these meanings we qualify to see them. They're hidden, but they're right in front of us at the same time. Why didn't I notice that before? Many people say this, right? It's because you hadn't earned it yet. You know, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, again, like, they were obligated to pray Qiyamul Layl at the onset of Islam, or at the advent of Islam in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How much Quran did they know? They didn't know much, right? Some people feel guilty that all they know is Juz' Amma, or a part of Juz' Amma. What is the problem? Learn some of their meanings and continue to repeat them until Allah Azza wa Jal allows some of the fruits of the surah to start falling on you and transforming you in beautiful ways. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq repeated an ayah from Surah An-Naba, Surah Amma, 20 times in one night. Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam repeated in تُعَذِّبْهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ عِبَادُكَ, that one ayah for the entire night. So engage with the Quran anew has just had a whole new meaning. Returning to how things were is more possible. We're kind of forced to do it now, and so just embrace it. Yeah, this is a huge blessing, and it may never ever get repeated again for as long as we live. And there's more, but I don't want to be that guy. Oh, yeah.
Sheikh Ahmed, obviously one of the things that are going to be different this Ramadan is that we are going to be unable to pray behind perhaps an imam in Ramadan, praying Taraweeh and listening to the people recitation. Our habit in Ramadan, part of getting engaged, is listening to the Quran. But if that is taken away, is there any other way perhaps that we can, any alternatives that are available, which will still enable us to kind of engage with the Quran? Hopefully, inshallah, that we get some of the things that Sheikh Muhammad has been talking about, that beautiful relationship, until, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may bless us that He would disclose some of the beautiful treasures of the Quran to us.
نعم شيخ. طيب الحمد لله رب العالمين. And if the masajid are closed in Ramadan, the doors of the heaven still open in Ramadan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open it. So we will, as a masajid. So we know that the word of the masajid, when we sit together in the masjid, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us, مَجْتَمَعَ قَوْمٌ فِي بَيْتٍ مِّن بِيُوتِ اللَّهِ, in a group from the believers, from the Muslimin, sit together in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reading the Quran and reflect about the Quran and understanding the Quran. The malaika will come surround them. But there is other hadith. I will mention that hadith and that's it. This hadith, he's not talking about the masajid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the angels in the earth. They're walking in the streets. They're looking for you. Not in the masjid. They're looking for you in the houses, in the streets. Looking for who? For those who are sitting together, reading the book of Allah, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When one angel finds that group in your house, in your backyard, in everywhere, you find you're sitting with your kids, with your wife, reading some from the Quran, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the malaika will call each other. Come here, we'll find what you're looking for. Then they will cover them with their wings until they reach the sama'ud dunya, lowest heaven. How great it is. But the censor is not here. When the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, listening to this hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, their heart became open and shake. And they want to join the Malaika. They want to invite the Malaika to their houses. Like today, we were in the Majlis Hadith, and Dr. Ahmed was there, I believe. The Sheikh stopped in the Hadith and he asked us, we were like 1800 from around the world. One question was Hadith that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave the Sahaba advice. They became crying. They start to cry, and their heart was shaking. The Sheikh stopped the car there, and he asked us, knowledge, ask yourself a question. What was the last time you cried when you heard the ayah from the book of Allah? Subhanallah. So let's invite the angels to our houses. Let's make one room, one corner in our houses like as a masjid. This corner will sit together there. We will teach each other one ayah from the Quran. We will talk about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about his seerah. We're talking about the one hadith at the day. We will read as much we can from the book of Allah. And that's a great opportunity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us to be connected with the family and connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. I cannot hear you, Shaykh.
You are muted, Sheikh Ahmed.
I'm muted. All right, there we go. Alhamdulillah. So from this conversation, mashallah, alhamdulillah, it's an opportunity for us, obviously, to kind of bring the spirituality in our homes. To be honest, this is one of the things, perhaps, and one of the beautiful practices that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum and even the pious predecessors used to have, is that their own homes were a beacon for our spirituality, even with their family members. Some of them would wake up their families at night. You'd hear, mashallah, beautiful stories of a person. He would do qiyam a third of the night, and his wife would do the other third, and his slave would do the other, or his servant, would do the other third. And you hear beautiful stories like these. So perhaps maybe this is a Ramadan, that we would bring this back into our houses. And it's unbelievable, subhanAllah, what this effect might have on an entire household. It will obviously require some patience. It's something that is new, but at least it's the start, perhaps, of a beautiful habit that we can do. Now, that being said, Sheikh Muhammad, practically speaking, what do you think we can do to try to make Ramadan
unique in that way, and in a positive way, I guess. And what are the some practices that we can do to hopefully to help increase our spirituality? And I think this is tied in with one of the Jazakumullah khair, Brother Habib over here made a comment. He said in Ramadan, how to increase more iman since we're not going to the masjid. Right. So I think this ties in well with the question that we're talking about right now.
Sure. Bismillah. So after we have conceded to the fact that Allah has not taken anything from us this Ramadan compared to the amount that He has given us. Once you're certain of that, then you'll start looking for what exactly He gave you, subhanahu, what He gave you, subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, one of the reasons, for example, so you said, first of all, to be praying Qiyamul Layl together with the family, no matter how much it is, just do it. You know, in a beautiful hadith of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Thaqafi, he said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to us one time, "Man qama bi'ashri ayatin lam yuktab min al-ghafilin." Whoever rises or stands at night to pray, meaning the night prayer, with 10 ayat, with 10 verses, will not be written, meaning for that night, as one of the heedless. So this is for every night, so nevertheless in Ramadan. And then if you think about it, that could be a rak'ah, and Al-Fatiha has already 7 ayat, and the shortest surah of the Quran is 3 ayat. So there you go, like you recited Fatiha and Inna A'tainaka al-Kawthar, if nothing else, if nothing else. This is the first thing I want to tell you. The second thing is you need to protect your fast. The fasting has a taste. There's a thinness in the air between the servant that is fasting and his Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala that is contaminated many a times by the poor quality of his fast. That's why the scholars said that fasting happens on 3 levels. There are those, and this is the majority, who hold this, I guess, classification. There are those who fast from al-muftirat, those with things that invalidate their fast. And then that's first level, right? They don't eat, they don't drink, they don't have conjugal relations to the end of it. These people, fine, they're not going to get an increase in iman through their Ramadan, okay? Allah will not ask them, why didn't you fast? You caught the bare minimum, you fasted, right? On a legal level, you fasted. You will not be punishable for not fasting, but you will not be rewarded with increased iman, with hasanat, because of your fast. You will not, until you climb to level 2. What is level 2? Someone who fasts becomes conscious, right? The fasting was لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, to become conscious of Allah. Someone who is conscious of Allah in their fast. What does that mean? Be conscious of Allah Azza wa Jal. It means to be conscious of Him in your actions, right? It means to respect His boundaries, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, that's another blessing in Ramadan Allah has given us. We contaminate our fast by looking at so many haram things and speaking to so many people. And the tongue is the greatest gateway to sin, as the Prophet ﷺ said. So much of that has been radically reduced, right? For the most part, except for one thing, right? The screens. Don't let it into your life. Allah has shut so many doors that are usually there. Our eyes look at things that are haram. Our tongues speak about things that are haram. Our ears listen to things that are haram. The second level of fasting, which will now invigorate you spiritually, is for you to fast from the muharramat, to actually be a person of taqwa. Otherwise, as the Prophet ﷺ said, رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعُ وَالْعَطَشِ. Maybe a fasting person may sometimes get nothing out of their fast, but hunger and thirst. They did fast, but they didn't get anything out of the fast. There's no increase on their fast. And this is usually the person, by the way, who fasting for them is like a pause button. Right after Ramadan, they don't have any reservoir. They haven't built much. So they go right back to their life. But for Ramadan to be an eject button, basically, get that tape out, new life, new me. You need to now be conscious of Allah in your conduct, to remember Allah in your behavior. If a person were to praise Allah with their mouth, with their tongue, say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, say Subhanallah al-Azim, glorify Him, but you don't act like He's glorious enough to be respected, for His bounds to be stopped at, then you don't truly glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the second level. The third level, how to get the max benefit from your fast, the quality of your fast, is for you to fast from everything but Allah, they said. So basically, level 2 is when you're staying away from all the haram. You're staying away from, you're fasting, abstaining from whatever could harm you in the hereafter, right? Level 3, may Allah allow us to spend some time up there before we die, right? Allahumma ameen. It's when you fast from whatever will not benefit you in the hereafter to begin with, right? Like, yeah, this is fine, this is nice, but it's not going to get me anywhere, so I'm not interested. May Allah Azza wa Jal upgrade us to those VIP levels. Okay, so and I could have mentioned so many things, like, you know, you read more Quran and this, that, and the third, and the list can go on. But I know other people will say this as well. And sometimes, you know, the thing that is so front and center, it gets so overlooked because we're so familiar with it. But you need to realize that the fasting is the only obligation of Ramadan, right? For the most part, right? It's the only obligation. Tarawih is technically not an obligation. That means it's the most important thing. And therefore, working on the quality of our fast to realize, wake up in the morning, I'm in a state of worship for the next 10, 15 hours. That's a huge blessing. Like, you wake up worshiping Allah. It's a huge act. There's nothing like it. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said to, was it Abu Umama, alayka bis-sawm fa innahu la idla lahu. There's no equivalent to fasting. But that's not just any fasting person. That's the fasting person who's truly fasting. And so don't overlook being spiritually rejuvenated through Siyam itself. And then that will open the door to so many other things now. You know, you reading Quran like never before, you behaving in your character like never before, all those other ayat and hadith will start to make sense. The Prophet ﷺ being the most generous in Ramadan, and or more generous than ever in Ramadan. All of that, inshallah, will follow in suit if we begin from the right place. May Allah add quality to our Siyam and yours.
So, Muhammad. So from there, obviously, like, you know, inshallah, once you go into that second level and the third level, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will allow us to kind of look at the Quran, or at least when we're studying the Quran, we can enjoy it a bit more. I guess this question is for Sheikh Ahmed. What are the things that we can do actually that can help us enjoy the Quran a bit more in Ramadan, as opposed to, like, you know, well, I'm hoping that inshallah this month will be more than the usual. But the basic question is what can we do to help us or assist us in enjoying these beautiful recitations, or this beautiful relationship that we have with the Quran?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Quran revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to his heart. In the Quran will attach our heart, that the place that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looking at us, our heart. So the Quran, if our heart is not pure, the Quran will do nothing with our heart or our life. ذلك عثمان بن عفان said, والله لو طهرت قلوبنا ما شبعنا من كلام ربنا.
So, you know, I was thinking exactly that same hadith, subhanAllah, from Uthman ibn Affan, you know, that you never get bored if our hearts were pure.
Exactly. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. That's what we have to work for, yani, to love the Quran. So if we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will love His words. If we have true love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we definitely will love His words. If you love someone, listen to him. That's exactly with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we have that true love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we love His word. تعظيم الكلام تعظيم العظم. And if you have respect and honor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we respect His words, we respect His Quran. Right. And there is signs for that. If you are very happy to recite Quran, that you love Quran. If you spend more time with the Quran, that you love Quran. If you miss the Quran when you're busy with life things, you miss to recite Quran, you miss your Mus'haf, that you love Quran. And there is two ways to do that. First way, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The dua, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the Quran in our heart. اللهم اجعل القرآن ربيع قلوبنا. That's what the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, dua the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was. Second, to learn how to read the Quran. Reading with tadabbur, reading with understanding, We're reading was stopped in the ayat, even if you don't understand Arabic. Most of Arab don't understand the Quran. But if you find ayah like Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, ask with the dua. Can Sidna Sheikh Abdul Hakim, Abdul Latif, Allah yarhamu, rahimahullah, used to teach us that. When you find Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, if you read Khatma Tadabbur, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, say Allahumma ja'alna min al-mu'minin. If you pass with ayah with the Jannah, say Allahumma adkhilna al-Jannah. If you pass with ayah with the Nar, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the Nar. Like that. And you have to make goals for your recitation. Why I recite the Quran? The scholar said you recite the Quran for 5 things. And they collected for thumma sha. A theme for thawab, reward. So you recite the Quran, maybe your goal to get a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you will get it, inshallah. You recite the Quran, the meme to munajah. Tunaji Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to talk to him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk to you when you recite the Quran. And you will get that, you will feel that sweetness in your heart. And the meme also for the mas'ala, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what do you want? Ask him Jannah. Ask him to protect you from the Jahannam. And the sheen for the shafa'ah, to nail the shafa'ah, to get the shafa'ah from the Quran. And ayn for the ilm. If you want to learn, read the Quran. Read the tafsir. Then al-ayn for the amal, to act upon what you understood from the Quran. Ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh al-Islam, he has one statement. He said, "Man tadabbar al-Quran," whoever studied the Quran, the intention was to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide him, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide him. Okay. Other thing to feel that sweetness with the Quran, like the Sheikh mentioned, qiyam al-layl bil Quran. To pray qiyam with the Quran, to pray tarawih with the Quran. And that's a chance to read the Quran in your prayer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, said, وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَتَهَجَّدْ بِهِ نَافِلَةً لَكَ. And you have to stand up in the night and recite the Quran. And he said, يَا أَيُّهَا الْمُزَّمِّلْ قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Now we mentioned something else, قراءة القرآن بالليل. You will feel that sweetness in the Quran in your heart, more than the nahar. One more thing, the tikrar, the repeating, whatever you memorized. If you're going to repeat Juz Amma, repeat Juz Amma 1 week. If you want to repeat, in 1 week, don't pass the week. And the Salaf Salah, as Imam Nawawi mentioned in his Tibyan, the book of Tibyan, said some of them you will recite the Quran every 2 months. Some of them every 1 month. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told Abdullah ibn Amr. Majority of the Salaf and the Sahaba, they used to finish the Quran in 7 days. Some of them in 3 days. Some of them in 1 day. Some of them each layla. Every night he used to finish the Quran. Imam Shafi'i radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said he used to do 60 khatmas in the month of Ramadan outside the Salah. Subhanallah al-Azim. And the Imam now he said, the most I heard from that, أن أحدهم كان يختم القرآن 8 مرات في اليوم. One of them, he used to finish the Quran 8 times at the day. Tikrar al-ayat, like the Sheikh mentioned that Abu Bakr, he repeated the ayah 20 times. The Prophet ﷺ spent 1 night to repeat 1 ayah. Ayat al-du'a, repeat it. Repeat the ayat al-du'a. The ayat in the end of the Surah al-Baqarah. And you know ayat al-du'a ma'rufa, yani everybody knows it. Alhamdulillah. Tartil. Don't read the Quran like you read newspaper or an ebook. No, rattil al-Quran tartila. Try to enjoy your voice. Al-jahr bil-qira'ah. Yani don't read in your secret when you're sitting by yourself. No, raise your voice and read the Quran. And inshallah, if you keep doing that, we will feel inshallah the sweetness of the Quran in our heart. Jazakumullah khair.
Subhanallah, one of the I couldn't help but there's a single thought that's coming out to my mind, listening to both Sheikh Mohammad Elshinawy and Sheikh Ahmed regarding our goal, I guess, in the end of this or through this journey, making this unique. And that one word is subhanallah that keeps coming to mind is al-uns billah. And this is a very beautiful relationship that a slave has with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sheikh Muhammad, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Al-Uns billah. Because it's really tied in, subhanAllah, to about the loneliness factor, right? That, like, not feeling lonely, our like an increased spirituality, our relationship with the Quran, and all these things.
Yeah.
So can you say a couple of words about this?
Without feeling hypocritical is very difficult. But I ask Allah to help us peel away the layers this Ramadan.
Ameen.
But al-uns billah, what can we possibly say? First of all, al-uns billah means being comforted by God. So you're either going to be comforted by Allah, like enjoying, finding solace in His company, or else you'll never find it. You know, ala bi dhikrillah, it's by the remembrance of Allah, meaning only by His remembrance. The hearts find this, it's not rest. It is comfort. Because subhanAllah, the spirit doesn't rest, doesn't like raha, it doesn't find raha. The spirit was made, forgive me for the term, I'm a New Yorker, but grind, right? You know, the grind, they always talk about the grind, the hustle. Your spirit was made to not sit still. It's just a matter of what you're going to exert it in, right? If you exert it in Allah Azza wa Jall's devotion, in dedication, in worship, in adoration, in clinging to Allah, it finds peace, it finds tranquility. And if you allow it anything else, it'll just keep chasing for more and more and more and more, assuming this is the only thing out there, and it'll be on this wild goose chase, this disappointing run forever. And that's why they would say that, the dunya is like salt water. The more that you let yourself drink from it, the thirstier you get. Ibn al-Qayyim reports that Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he used to say that there is nothing greater in this world than getting acquainted with Allah and longing to meet Him. That comfort, but at the same time, there's like an undertone of anxiety that, can I hold on to this? Will I ever get the full installment of it? It's just a beautiful experience that is beyond words. Like, even if we were to falsely claim that we experience it, we wouldn't be able to describe it in a way that gives it justice. And Al-Hasan rahimahullah and others of the Salaf, they used to say that we experience certain moments of just like clarity and uns, right? Comforting intimacy with Allah, that we say, if paradise is like this is a good life. It would have been enough. And one of them, he used to say that if the kings and the princes knew what we experienced, they'd chase us for it with their swords. Think about that, because the kings and the princes have what? They have everything money can offer, right? But this is the one thing money can't buy. As Allah said about the Quran, which is your access point to uns, which access point to being comforted by Him, after He spoke about it and He told us to celebrate it, He said, why celebrate it? هُوَ خَيْرٌ مِمَّا يَجْمَعُونَ. It's better than all they can ever collect. So He said they would chase after it with their swords, because this is the one thing that the rich, the fortunate, unfortunately, can't purchase with the money of this world, with the currency of this world. And one of the Salaf as well, Abdullah al-Mubarak rahimahullah, he would say that Masakinu Ahl dunya, these basically he's sympathizing, but at the same time feeling grateful that he doesn't sell himself that lie. He has the gift of revelation to clear his way through the noise and through the confusion. He says these Masakinu Ahl dunya, these poor people that are obsessed with the material world, they spend their lives and exit it without tasting the most delicious thing in it. They said, what is that, O Imam? He said, Ma'rifatullah, getting to know Allah, like feeling that you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's something only He can grant. But you're going to have to try to apply for it and make sure you fulfill the eligibility requirements and ask Him to help you fulfill the requirements. That's why Abu Sulaiman al-Darani, they asked him, how do I get to Ma'rifatullah, getting to know Allah, like really knowing Him? He said, by obeying Him. They said, how do we get to the level of obeying Him? He said, through Him. You ask Him to help you obey Him so that you get to know Him, then you obey Him more, and just becomes this just blessed, virtuous cycle, as they say. This is the uns of Allah, that once you have it, nothing from this world can ever break you. Nothing from this world can ever hurt you more than, you know, the surface hurt, the puncture hurt. Your life just gets sweeter and sweeter, and if you will not be broken. You'll feel the blows, but your armor will never allow you to be pierced. It'll always be surface wounds, as they say. May Allah grant us and you that.
SubhanAllah, I couldn't help but, at least from the perspective of the way I'm looking at it, it seems like, SubhanAllah, at least for this year, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seems to have placed things in a certain way that is almost creating an environment that is conducive for us to perhaps become closer to him, become to him closer to him in this month. So for example, we're all in seclusion, right? This is not something by choice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed us in the seclusion. And then all the busyness of the life outside has been calmed down for us. A lot of the materialistic things that we usually are concerned about has been removed from our way for a majority of us. SubhanAllah, some people still have to venture outside, but for us, this has been moved. This happened almost a month before Ramadan, so that even if we're indulging or working or using a lot of screen time, a lot of us by this point are even sick of it. We're just tired of it right now. And so SubhanAllah, this seems to be a beautiful, I guess, combination or respite Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed for us, that maybe perhaps a lot of opportunities like this will come again, that maybe we could, inshallah, start to have this beautiful relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that could lead to that level of uns, where we are just comforted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that maybe perhaps that we'll feel that sweetness of iman that we cannot describe. It's one of those things that you just have to experience, like many other things, and that we try to teach our children, they don't have this conceptual idea of it, they just have to experience it. And so similarly, like these children, we have to experience it to kind of feel it. So subhanAllah, that's kind of that's making me excited about this Ramadan to some extent. So I guess I'm on the more of the optimistic side, inshallah. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a really unique Ramadan that does bring us close to him, to make us among the ones who entered in one way and exited in such matter, a much better level of iman and relationship with him subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a question that has been posed by Sheikh Qaisar. So he said, can we read from the Mus'haf for the Sunnah or Taraweeh prayers? I don't know, did Sheikh Muhammad or Sheikh Ahmed, did you?
It's Sheikh Ashour's turn.
Sheikh Ahmed.
Sheikh Shafi'i, it's allowed.
So can we read from the Mus'haf for the Sunnah or Taraweeh prayers?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, we can.
So the answer is yes, you can. And subhanAllah, this does help us a lot, because even if you don't memorize the Quran, if you can recite it, this is one of the things that we perhaps can do, inshallah. And I think there was another question that has been posed around the area of, let me try to locate this, but generally the question had to do with that there are a lot of virtual presentations right now, online and all these things, because we're just kind of searching them, everybody's kind of broadcasting something. And I think this was directed to Sheikh Muhammad. The question is, how do we filter through these lectures, right? So that we would stay away from the things that might have some impurities or watering down our religion, or might not be the best of us in terms for our faith and religion.
To be honest, I want you to tighten your valves even more than that. I want you to identify what you're trying to get by going online, because sometimes there can be pure content, but it could be purely a sedative for you to justify your laziness. And so what I want to learn one thing this Ramadan new, and I want to adopt one new habit. I say building a habit, you do it for 21 days, you're going to do it for 30 or 29, inshallah. Now I want to adopt one habit, a good deed that is going to become a habit of mine coming out of this month. And I want to get rid of one bad deed from my life, and I want to learn one thing new. Okay, so now that you've identified the goal, now you identify the means to the goal, right? I identify a series that will work towards that. Listen to that and that alone, even if something else is pure. Do not. The Prophet ﷺ would actually ask people to recite Quran to him. Why? The scholars said because he did not want to disconnect from the Quran when he was busy with other things. He still wanted to connect with the Quran. He went to Ibn Mas'ud, said to him, "Iqra, qala aqra alayka wa alayka unzil, qala inni uhibbu an asma'u min ghayri." I love to hear it from others. And so he recited to him. The scholars said you should alternate in a way that'll keep the Quran fresh. Meaning, okay, I read some Quran, now let me walk away. No, center everything around the Quran. Okay, I'm going to recite a little bit to myself. If I'm tired or whatnot, or I'm going to play something, right, of Quran. Everything is Quran. I want to reflect on the surah that I memorize of the Quran. I would suggest to you, for example, this would be a shameless plug. We are doing a series at my masjid about like an ayah a night. You can sign up for Sunnah Station at YouTube to get the notifications if you want. But even better than that, because YouTube is a rabbit hole or an abyss, not a rabbit hole. You start one place and you wind up like figuring out how to, you know,
Take a shower.
yeah, make an egg sandwich, you know, while building Legos. So QuranReflect.com is a great resource as well. It shows you examples on how to reflect on the Quran by others. By the way, Quran Reflect, and I don't own this, they don't make money, so I definitely don't make money from them, nothing like that. But Quran Reflect also has a really cool feature. Their app was just released as well. I'm not sure how user-friendly it is. It's the first beta version, I believe. But you can even develop a Quran diary, okay? Where you don't have to publicize your posts. You just, an ayah touched you. You caught something you didn't catch before. You want to freeze that moment. And so you just make that diary entry and you save it on your account. And you come back to it. And I think it was Ibn al-Munkadir, rahimahullah, he said something very beautiful about this. He said, when you perform a good deed, a pure good deed, Allah blesses you for it 3 times. You enjoy it. Allah allows a sweetness, you know, in return to encourage you that you're on the right track. And you find its reward with Allah in the hereafter. He says, and you also are benefited from it every time Allah reminds you of it, right? Like you reminisce about that moment. And so
I think that's me. I'm just going then all over the place. Alhamdulillah.
yeah, so I would recommend those things. You know, figure out what you want to do first, then figure out what will get you there. Don't go streaming and browsing and, you know, experimenting and exploring. The month is not that long. Ayyam ma'dudat. There are a set number of days, and you know how it goes. And find a way to reconnect with the Quran on your own. Take what you need. A little bit of online for group support. Fine. A little bit of, you know, bumping up, you know, the caliber of my knowledge, or refreshing my memory, or stirring my my spiritual vigor. Fine. That's it. And disconnect. Forget all the other stuff about like inauthentic stuff and then like toxic stuff and entertainment and otherwise. May Allah protect us.
Ameen, Ya Rabb, ameen. Jazakumullah khair. طيب, I think we're gonna stop here, inshallah, since it's Isha time. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to reach Ramadan safely and to enjoy this month in the blessed in this blessed month in the best way possible, and walk in the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, among those who reach the highest of levels, and to be with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the martyrs and the pious predecessors, and to enable us to drink from the hands of the Prophet ﷺ, a sip by which we would never go thirsty again. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with us in the world and the hereafter, our time, our month, our wealth, and our children. Jazakumullah khair, Sheikh Muhammad and Sheikh Ahmed. I hope inshallah that we can reconnect again soon, inshallah. Maybe next time, inshallah, maybe on a live, like, you know, live grounds in reality. Ahsanallahu alaykum. وجزاكم الله خير.
الله خير.
الآن استغفرك واتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خير for the gracious invite. السلام عليكم.